Foundation is what you've always been. It's something that you can't get out of. It's something that you always are. Now, for you to process, engage, inform, and shape yourself is truly in how to see the seconds, minutes, and hours that you process through. But it's all levels of the body of its movement. The body has to recognize, why is it blinking? Why is its eyes? Why is it twitching? Why is it doing this? Why is it doing that? Yet, what you have to modify, because everything your body's doing is not about travel itself. Now, it has a response or it has a reaction. Now, for you to modify these things, it's knowing exactly what's going on through its box frame of travel of communication. Simple, right? Do you understand what the box is doing? Because if you're not, it creates another volume, creates another file, creates another sequence, creates lines of confusion. It creates its own anomaly, creates its own space, creates its own ego. Now, if it creates its ego, what does it create next? It comes an alteration of its own system, all through platitude, its own location to its setting. Okay, so it's very hard to get rid. And when you're getting rid, you're just readjusting the intelligence of directing and position lines of X, Y, Z, platforms as triangulation of box, position, location, Y line, screen line, adaptation of flux, percentage over screen, adaptation of proxy, line connection, say, converting position operates lines of travel, files of indication lines of A, process lines of B over lines of C, C position lines of D, lines of E, lines of F, question over mark and screen. Okay, it's all levels of travel back to itself, right? So you're back in control of your game. Okay, so that's what happens when you create an ego to an alteration of the ego itself, which you understand through files or anything through its setting, through its archive, or anything through its processing, or anything through its gauging, forming, shaping lines of its anomaly. Don't let things take over your system in travel. Modify yourself through information. Foundation is easy to understand these things because it processes how we understand the game itself. So when you bring things in, knowing exactly what you're doing in your seconds, minutes, and hours. But you have to have the time frame, time format, time calculation, times power, line direct centers into time flux. You have to have a timeline screen, adaptation locations. You have to have a Fibonacci line rotation. You have a triangulation. You have to have a box. You have to have a simulation and line connects your thoughts, actions, and emotions. Basic grounds and set lines of sequence. Okay? Now, putting this all together is nothing but a film strip of design and set lines of travel. Okay? Travel is its own system of operation on setting. So logging into space is extremely crucial at this point because that's where you come into questioning yourselves in travel. So question is extremely powerful, and you get out of less questioning, ask your system, location your system, try to understand what your body is through transmission, transfusion, translation, likeness, transcribe, your location, setting, operation, line, position, mutation itself, that puts you in positions how to go through the seconds, minutes, and hours in your game, okay? So every time, again, you blink, your brain is taking pictures where you are, where you're in position, right? So it creates a film strip of design, okay? And then it puts the body where it's supposed to be in travel, communication. Look at that, running its own system of operation. 12 lines of grounds, 12 lines of atmosphere, lines of travel, okay? Clock and foundation, equal lines, there's your equal sign. That's your equal sign. Process here, longitude, latitude, positions here, position here, position here, position here, travel. Okay? So recognizing all these set locations, this is what everybody's coming into December 25th. Okay? That's just the basics of A, B, and C through foundation of 12 and 24 with zeros and ones. Now, understanding the modification of your system is the lotus, understanding position of your flywheel, and position of equilibrium, balance your settings, how you process your system, engaging and forming yourself through shape. Coming into your platforms, change the tether, change the travels, change the location setting. We'll go through that platform setting of travel, balance communication system to location grid. Their perspective, okay? Perspective is everything of itself that modifies its truth, how it sees every information setting position. So it's recognizing that, but you actually see it travel, right? Very powerful stuff when you come to circulation rotations. More powerful when you come into portals of communication setting of travel of positions where it goes round and round and round and round, right? That's grounds, powers, and atmospheres. So there's an equal sign here, there's another equal sign here, another equal sign here in that process. So each equal sign becomes a position location. There's your window. Okay? So it's amazing how we come to our platforms and we see through astral projection ourselves and foundation settings that process our position locations when we look at things as we bring things in. So get a basic ground, so we bring in A. Okay, you brought in A, but you forgot C, but you know B. But C is already A, but A is B or C. So if you're not bound to your system, what is positional confusion now? Which is bringing your ego, your alter ego, so it's changing the alter state of your mind. So you're not understanding A, B, and C. So C, B, and A is now A. But you don't understand A because you understand C, but C doesn't understand B. See the confusion? So when you're walking in a park, let's just process set lines of travel of direction. Okay, so it just gives you a basic understanding the window frames that you process through. As everything around you is just basically, the brain itself is just taking pictures and it's creating a collage, creating a film strip, creating a design, creating schematics, creating a primer, creating a highway. All right, right away. Okay, 3 levels of grounds, 3 lines of position of power, 3 lines of settings. Grounds, powers, and opposite, 3, 6, and 9. 3, 6, and 9. We got that in process, right? 3, 6, 9. Triangulation here, okay? But your clockings are going to be 24 north, 24 east, 24 west, and 24 south into 144 flex. In settings and positions, all through travels of Earth, 0.024 in travel communication, right? Now that goes to the setting line position of pi. 1/3, 1/6, 1/8, 1 travel, and 1 position in settings, 1/12, 1 line position, 24 lines of scale of communication. All right. Directing grounds in positions, all lines. Position processing, directing line ground centers into equal line course centers in performance. Travels in 3 grounds, 4 centers in calculation of 45 angles in travel. So in that position, process that position lines of travel in position lines of calculation. Now I had to see that in all lines into your web and system instant lines of travel. Okay. So you have to get the grounds, guys. You got to get the grounds in your system, the 12, right? It's very important you understand the grounds, okay? It comes together in this set lines of operation, okay? The grounds, the powers, and then you come into the atmospheres, okay? The atmospheres is processing everything you come in your webbing and processing your position your Skynet, okay? And you can see it on this level of operation setting all through travel. Okay, so when you look at it, you can see it in all formation systems all at once in set position and settings, the operation system and traction. Okay, so what you're doing is you're bringing in the mind of image that processes the theta that you bring it into its construct, which is nothing but a infrastructure of a design that you construct through creating. Bringing that position, location, measure, and scale into a platform of communication. Okay, going to a store like this and travel. Okay, you brought that in, right? You brought it in, right? Now, as you bring it in, you can see the grounds, you see the powers, and you see the atmospheres, right? Now, this is how it's processed in space. How it's processed on the Earth is how you see it in real time. But the mind sets up the image, and the image comes in vision, and it comes in cortex of theta. Now that processes you and your doppelganger, how you see that in perception of 12 settings and 24 foundation of clocking. Okay, all through your simile, which is a simulation. So there's your simulation right there. Okay. So it's no different reality, just the perspective, how the doppelganger sees it and how the projection, the astral projection sees it. That's the difference, but a perspective of reality that processes the truth and its false narrative. So there is no difference of anything that you project in your mind. It's just a different process, guys. Different frequencies. Okay, different design. Okay, but the truth follows the narrative. That processes your animations that you created in your anomalies. So you don't get confused what Earth is and what space is at the same time. Seeing 2 provisions of cycles in one. Okay, all through travel. So now you position lines, you got it all set up. You're taking you out at standby, then you process that position intent, influence, and now your mind altered your setting. Now your body, you see your body, okay, going to the store, okay, right here. See your body going to the store, right? Goes in the store, right? And then you can see positions, bring the altercation settings. Then you see that person, okay, at the travels and directions, okay, right there. You buy what you want to buy. Okay, star clerk and that positions and that travel communications, and then you come out. Now, when you come out, this disappears. This is gone. It fades away and disappears in your mind. Okay, so I want to make you very well sure what you guys come into foundation, how real these things go in setting, because you don't see anything fantasy. You see anything of reality that you depicted in your mind and imagination, right? So that is gone. It's not there anymore. It's gone because you left. Now, if you come back, are you setting up a new position or is it coming in position? So what you have to understand is that as soon as you leave the store and you don't look back, you're fine. You just come to a new time format, to another image that you process every time you blink. So your brain gets in correlation lines of balance with you as center operation, doesn't get confused, so it's anomaly. But what you also have to understand, if you look back and you don't set another time frame to another argument, another time format, at another position, another binary, okay, it creates its own anomaly, which means it brings its own characters and its own players of the game that you're not implicating through, that you don't understand, which means you brought something in that you're not in modification of the game itself, which means you're not in control of it now. You understand? It's a different universe that you didn't process through because you look back and didn't change anything. Okay? It changed itself. So it's very powerful. Okay? So this is what happens when you look back and you forgot to basically change the time format and change the communication setting. You can go back there. Maybe you forgot something, right? Maybe you forgot your change or whatever, right? So it's about understanding that it's not at the same frequency now. It's in a different dimension, different structure, different design, same process, just different frequency. But it's in a different timeline now, right? Because everything's now changed at a higher frequency in your simulation. That puts you in the game. The characters and the players are not the same because it's a different frequency now, okay? Different game setting, different setup, different correlation, different foundation, different clocking in your system through A, B's, and C's. All right, so now you're not processing that. Now the actual set position, okay, is now a tower, okay? So you're walking into a tower now and set position of operation, which you don't understand what you did in travel. You brought it in. You didn't bring that in, it brought it in itself. So it brought in its own game, brought its own volume, brought its own characters of its own players of operation. That's not what you brought in. You see how you changed it? See, you have to understand what you're doing in the modification of the game itself. You're in the mind control of everything you go through in seconds, minutes, and hours. And it's important you understand every time your eyes are blinking, all it's doing is it's processing, gauging, warping, and shaping a collage of a film strip. So when you guys take your naps, okay, it's processing, gauging, and forming and shaping itself and set position, astral projection. And when you're sleeping, it's creating a simulation game of a construct of a map that you follow through your simulation. That puts you in your kick drive to your high drives and set lines of communication. Okay? All right? So that's what happens when you see something different in travel. You're not in control. And you ask yourself, whoa, that was a restaurant I just put up, right? Why is it a building? Right? Because you didn't modify yourself. You didn't create an algorithm, a time format. So that's the matrix itself, which you're not modifying through, which is operating its own system. Remember, this is foundation of A, B, and C. So this is what you have to implicate through is processing what you're doing in your mind imagination. Because when you look back and you're not modifying, changing these things, it changes itself. And you're looking at something totally different. That did not implicate your mind imagination. That you didn't understand the process of what you're doing through time. So I want to make that very clear how it works in the mind of imagination of 12 and 24. That you bring in to your system. Okay. Hoo-ah. All right. So let's just get into the basic understandings of A, B's, and C's. Okay, I know the A, I know the B, and I know the C, right? Just get into that setting. That's A, B, and C, right? So I understand the A center, I understand the B, and I understand the C frame, right? A, B, C frame. I understand the film strips of design, equal line, course centers, and position on processing line, direct location, setting, and travel, okay? So I also understand how to break these things down and set position codification, right? Process that position, now I go through D, now I can go through E, right? So A, B, C, D, E, right? Now, if I understand that, then I understand what is A in a higher level, what is B on a lower level, what is C in a higher position, what is D in a formation setting, what is E in a formation lines of grounds, a travel. The scene information system is truly to understand what you already are in your foundation of your minds, knowing exactly how to come in your own clockings of A, how to come in your own clockings of B, how to come in your own clockings of C, how to come in your own clockings of D, and how to come in your own clockings of E, information setting, 12 and 24. Okay? So it's extremely important you understand these things. Because the thing is, you don't want to chase, not a foundation, because it loses transition of transaction, which you already have through creation of forming your shapes that you already have in position through attraction. And that's what Zara and I are trying to get you to understand. It's much easier for you to stay in the center and put everything of the mind itself that you process through, all through imaging, all through travel of communication, right? Everything travels in its own system. So you understand the question here, you understand the question here, and you understand the question here. Okay, that you're processing through, right? So information gets to you, understand the data, understand the game. So I understand the instructions of the game, I understand the modifications of the game, understand the computers of the game, understand the operation of the game itself. And now I just have to understand how to understand the questions of the characters. Okay, now I have to truly understand, because it's all memory that you already know. You're just processing everything position that's going to help you process yourself looking more of transition going forward rather than going back. Because when you're going back, your mind's going back in real time, not in fantasy. So mind's going back, your body's going back. So everything you say, you have to be cautious of what you do, because that puts you in position and confusion to your alignment where your body isn't back in time, back in setting, back in operation of travel communication. All right? So you don't want to do that. Okay? Very important to understand these things. This is just A, B's, and C's, the foundations of your clocking centers. And that's where you process everything you bring in. Knowing exactly how to see your DOS, knowing how to see your iOS, and how to see your IPA. I process your FAA, okay, that gets in position here, ESC, okay? Your DOS is your data operating setting, your iOS is your intelligence operating system, your IPA is your locations, your FAA is your foundations awareness of your aerodynamics, your line conditions, your process, your position, your atmospheres, your awakening systems, all through calculation line grounds. Your escape is how you process your system or your game. The next level you come to your kick drive, your high drive. It's all process of communication server that gets you in position to travel. Okay. What you guys have to recognize is the center of you of operation, where the brain doesn't convey anything negative. Okay, it's not positive and negative, it's just always in the center. So if everything's always in the center, it's the mind that does everything, that changes everything of the center itself, but never leaves the center. Okay? So if we get a true understanding of that, then we're always in the presence of everything, which is always in the film strips of the now that we process through, and how recognize in our position what we are in our bodies, how to modify your set lines of travel communication. So this helps you to really understand how to see everything outside that processes everything inside of travel, or how to see everything from one corner center into another corner center into another corner center in position of 4 centers of files of indication. And it's all in your mind imagination, but the brain is always in the center. And that's what you guys are going to go through a 12 flux in a 24 line, position of 24 lines set being positions of north, east, west, and south, 24, 24, 24, 144 flux, and set lines of travel. So in that process, your sitting comes into light and how you process yourself through dark. Okay. Waterline communicates the system and travels, directing ground sends of flux, set position 12 and 24 lines of rotation of travel communication, directing line ground sends and orbs in position inside calculation. All right. But the basic understanding is walking, floating. Okay. Once you understand how to walk And understand walking is line position of bridging. Okay. That position of floating itself is 4 angles. Mind of alteration of empty space that you have to process through. Okay. And then you get positions of levels. Then you come to the angelics of flying in your system of travel. And then you come to position of levitating your system, all through calculation of your system, your teleportation vessel. All right. That's a process we all have to go through. And that's to understand how to get in position on highways, guys. Okay. Every time you're walking, you're creating a highway. You're creating a portal. You're creating energy, vibration frequencies. You're walking through indications. You're walking through anomaly. You're walking through space. You're walking through time. You're teleporting. You're transforming. You're mutating. You're telegraphing. You're teleweaving. You're code weaving. You're code tractions. You're vortexing. You're time leaping. You're time jumping. And once you process your earth and know exactly what your body is in position of foundations, it gets a true understanding how to time format, timelines, time sequence, time panels, time calculations, vortex line, communication, energize, and lines of travel of communication. All through travel. Okay? But you have to understand the basics first of what the body's doing through its own teleportation travel itself, through 12 and a 24 setting of capacity. You have 12 capacity, 100%. Okay? And position of 24 capacity. Okay? Now, once you get into 24, you're automatically in 0 in 100% line of communication. Okay? So 24 comes in at 48 line frames, 72 position of computer line rotations into 144 flux. Okay, once you reach 140 flux, your position lines and settings, process here, your platitude location system indicates lines of travel and position of its portals, coming into your stargates of communication, disappearing in location. So when you disappear, you're going faster through Mach, interstellar mode, hyperdrive. Center drive, calculation lines at online position location, how to go into the acceleration of Mach, acceleration of travel, acceleration of space, acceleration of time. The Mach system, how to go lines of position of vortex, line conditions, time flux, time calculations, time formation lines, body framing, body correlations, body calculation lines, body operation lines, and time position lines of travel, all through communication, all through direction. So once you understand how to go through portals, then you understand how to go through stargates. And as you go faster, you disappear. Okay? But you go in and out. So first you have to understand that, wow, how come that person didn't see me? So is it a coincidence that people bump into you? No, they just don't see you. Remember, it's at an intelligence level that you're going to start to understand. So when somebody bumps into you, it's not a coincidence. Or somebody's trying to dance around you and you're late for work and you're trying to get around them, right? That's not a coincidence. They're just not recognizing your platform. They're not recognizing the game that you process through. You created each other, but you created yourself first. Now, how to modify that is to the game itself. It's understand that it's the instructions of the game, of you. That is the game life. That's a life force that you have to recognize how you come in your alteration of space and time, the provision of location, all 3 lines of state that you put yourself in mind of communication, the platforms that you process in that position location and put you on travels, all 3 o'clock and setting in position lines of 12 and 24 cent lines of scale that communicates high ground center position of operation system that platitude location of its operation. Okay? The game itself that you go through, which is travel. Okay? Levels of the game. So there's a lot connecting to your system that you have to modify through why the body is here in real time in foundation, so it can understand the adjustment and its alignment so that body doesn't get confused where it is in the mind, imagination, if it's not understanding where it is in its planet. If it's not understanding where it is in its time of its planet, or where it is in its solar system of its planet, or understand its travels of its communication of its planet, or understand its telepathy lines of communication and formation lines of its crop circles of planet, or understand the process position of the mind, alteration setting, or anything else projection location of travel that's bringing the location of its alteration system that changes projection location setting, that changes the ego's information system all through travel. So I'm just getting you guys grounded. And you have to be grounded more and understand how to go through the real formation setting, how you see things in perception at a 12 dimension and a 24 scale. Okay? It's just the perspective, guys, how you see things. Okay? Okay? I see everything. It's just the biggest thing you all have to identify is how you see yourself in 12 angles and how you see yourself in 24. There's no difference. just the perspective. Perspective is everything. So you stop getting confused what you're doing through anomaly, how you see everything, process of position of travel, working all together in one. 12 works with 2, 2 works with 1, 1 works with 12, 12,000 works with 1, 1,000 works with 2, 0, 1 line position works with 3,000 line centers, process lines of 4,000 line rotation, travels in 6 lines of calculations, into 12 lines of anomaly, into 24 million light years away. You travel. They all connect in one, but they all travel all together. Clock in here, clock in here, clock in. Everything's a clock in a time format that you go through film strip. Now that can be in seconds, minutes, and hours, and your longitude, your latitude of your streaming that you plot through your bandwidth. Bandwidth is everything. Time formatted in locations. What you have to come into is you're not coming into anything of time. You have to set the time. You have to set the foundation. You have to set the clock into your foundation setting in 12 and 24 o'clock in first. Because if you're not perceiving yourself, everything is no longer being in control of your system. That's the matrix taking over you, which means you're not understanding the mind of alteration of the game that you process in. Not understand the alteration that you process in your egos. Not understand how to control the system, operation itself. Okay, through clocking, foundation, and setting. So understand the clocking, then you come into the film strips of travel, modification of the game. Okay? These are the different levels of the clock in the game that you go through time formats. This is a time measuring scale. All right? So we already know we're going to be 0. And now you have to process how you go through 0 equals 1, 2, and 3. How does 0 equal 1, 2, and 3? And then you process lines of 3 to lines of 1 equals 0 of operation. All right, and then you send the time format. There's the time scale. So once you send that, you send the center of operation setting, which is your Fibonacci, creating the portal of communication setting, outline signals, and a 45 angle. You have to start at the 45 angle because that's the perspective how you process that position. The capacity lines of 45 line centers, process line position of 5 over travel, 5 over division, 5 location setting. Boxing frame, triangulations, and position all through travel communication setting. Okay? So this helps you to really understand how to come in that position location system. Now once you understand how to go through 0 equals 1, 2, 3, then you understand 3, 2, 1, that's direct. And redirect into system and position. Okay? Then you come to your I division of locations. But remember, it's everything inside the I itself that you have to modify through. So it's knowing the quadrant self, the nano self. Instructions how to use the grounds, powers, location setting, just in 0 calculations. Now we modify the position of 45%. Then in position once you reach 50, you're at light and dark and balance. Okay, you're not in balance until you're at 45. Now you can be at 38, you can be at 36, and you can be at 34. And anything below 24, you're reaching anomalies of 12. Anything below that, you're in the spectrum in nebula, which is low frequency grounds, a spectrum. Now you're working with a low division line condition setting, where it converts a setting and low frequency lines of position to your system, which is the intelligence information that's in at 12 platforms from 12 below. Okay, so you got to be very careful how you modify yourself. Stay at 45 angle, then you go into 5 line centers, so 3 centers, 4 centers, 5 lines of travel communication, right? Directing into your embedding system, all through process of indication setting. Okay, that puts you in information setting here, process of here, and triangulation. Okay, so 45% is 5 centers over lines of angle. You process everything over lines of pi, or under lines of pi, or correlations of pi, directing lines of pi, center lines of pi, operation lines of pi, but you're always in the center of everything of pi. So what you have to come in position of is understand how to put your past, present, and future into alignment at 3 centers of travel of communication. Past, present, and future. Okay, all in one on one operation system, balance. Now you see that is through an octagon, right? And all that position lines of travel of communication. So it's here to stand and say, stop. Okay, stop sign, right? It's octagon, but it systematically understand its travels, understand its operation, understand its process in its own system. So everything I'm giving you is already what you already know, but you have to understand your time formats when you come in your position location, how you see it in travels of communication, 45 flux. 45 flux puts 45 line centers, location, and percentage of time frame. Now process your position of time editing of space itself. That modifies bending space. This is bending space. But bending space is going through this. okay? Times centers, times calculations, times pi, 2tt, right? Which is the truth. Now equals lines of false and set lines of travel, okay? So there always has to be truth and there always has to be false. You can't go true without false because you're not processing yin, understanding yang. So you can't go in the full cycle and set position operation one center. If you understand 6 and 9, the process position, how you see 6 and how you see 9, process U of center operation of set position. So it's a lot going on in your system now and foundation itself that you have to go through, okay? This is going to help you to really understand what triangulation is at this length and level, okay? So this puts you in positions and platforms into, let's say, seconds, minutes, and hours. Hours in the top line, set lines of light and lines of dark over lines of screen. Now that process in position, location, and ground centers. So you got seconds and hours, hours and minutes, seconds and minutes, hours and minutes, hours and frame of travel communication. So that puts you in position to its rainbow and set lines of travel, okay? So it's interesting how we come to that portal and we come to this portal of communication of bridging and set lines of travel of communication, right? There's your teleportation vessel outside of operation, okay? But everything you go through direct and redirect is processing your position, location, measure. That gets you position how you come into your always lines of calculating ground centers, which is your DOS communication setting, which is platitude location system, which is nothing information system that you platform in position lines of travel. Your tree of life. That's what your DOS is. Everything you treat, all those trees that you see out there, they are their own DOS, but they are in their own protecting and positions. You see them through trees, but where they really are in position, trees are satellites and bushes are relays. Now, if you modify the perception of that, you're going to see in a 12-line setting of operation setting that puts you in longitude, latitude, how your echoes and sonars comes in position lines of balance. You start to see your online set position, how you see yourself, your own DOS of communication lines of travel. Your data operating setting is what you really are. Confirmation setting, it puts you in a 12 lines of rotation setting, how you process your indication system, all through your clocking system. Process 3 lines of travel. Process 3 lines of travel on the grounds. Okay, set position here, 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 set position over cross, set position over here, set position cross, set positions over here. A balance of communication. Travels all together all in one. So it's all about understanding how to create the modification of grounds, powers, and your atmosphere location, your Skynet. Okay, basic understanding, and then you change the streaming of directions of locations, change the thread, process the centers, line communication setting, working with that position as grounds first. Okay, change information setting, make sure you're good in that level and set position of operation. Then you come into this, and set lines of travel, and set calculation setting. Okay, then you come into your webbing system, which is your clock and center. Okay, now this process a little bit more of communication, right? Bringing in more lines of travel. Okay, so it just gives it more of a punch in that position. Then you come to your Skynet. Be careful on your threading. Don't bring it too thin and don't bring it too thick of travel communication. Okay, so you can process everything, the grounds, the powers, and its application of travel. Okay, that you put yourself into through the I-line settings of set lines of travel. Okay, all through recognition. Okay, now I like to get complicated because complication is easy. Now easy is complicated. So the foundation gets you into more lines. So you stop questioning yourself and transition. And you understand the energetic flow, which is the 8 pattern that processes your platforms of your equals of separation, bringing yourself together in all position of window frame and travel communication of figure 8, rotating cycles of high generation lines of grounds. Setting operation lines of locations comes in the I division location system. Set position here through figure 8, a rotation, which is your DOS, that you're all going to come back to in line of rotation. Understanding how to see that, its operation system, platters you in lines of settings. It's very powerful when you come into position how to understand that through its platform. So the docile knows exactly how to come into its own games of its own operation of foundation itself. Okay? Okay? That's what you come back to. But you have to process the symbiote. And the symbiote has to process you. And then you really understand that you are just you now. Now I'm understanding I'm at my 12 level. I'm understanding my 24. Now I just got to get understanding how to get to my 48. See, remember things already done, but it's much easier to have more of a conversation, a more of transition, more lines of silence where it becomes more golden to your system. And then you come into the walking lines, you come into the pathological system, you come into your neuropathological system, you come into the neuropathy system, you come into your neural line centers, you come into your neurolinks, you come into your modification system, you come into your motives and Wi-Fi's and towers, a foundation of what you are in travel communication. So it's much easier to go through the transition of flow as you start to recognize how to get in position location in your system, how everything operates inside that projects everything outside of its perspective. Okay, so you never ever see anything different. Okay, so once you recognize that, then you understand that you're not creating an ego that alterates your system of your spectrum, how you see it in real time of your simulation. You're going through an ego. So you're going to different costumes, a different time, different format in travel. Right, so this is the time format that you have in position. This is the time calculation that you process in binary, right? This is it. After that, it's finished. Okay, that's it. You can't go through that anymore, right? So it's gone. That's the time format that you put yourself into. That's the time game that you put yourself in platforms, the set lines of position. So this is how many games you process in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now once that finishes, the bandwidth of the streamlines, the seconds, minutes, and hours, time's up. You always have to set an algorithm. That process, your acid projections, how you go through travels and writes in a timeline. It's like calculation. All right. So it's really interesting how you see your platforms going through body, going through the seconds, going through the minutes, going through the hours in that day in a 24 set position. That's already done through 12 and 24 set lines of calculation, 24 scale of communication. Right. So it's all levels of bandwidth and streaming, right? Because remember, you're coming into no foundation. You're coming in out of no routine. Into the routine, how you see routine. Remember, it's not reality how you see it. It's reality how you see it. Let's make that very well clear. Stop seeing the reality what it is and start to see the reality of what you want to see. And that's how you project everything in your mind, through creating, not through creation. I don't want anybody to get confused. So don't think you're manifesting, because you're not. You're just understanding the creation of creating. Now, once you process that, then you come into all levels, into new settings, new operation. Then you come into real thoughts, real actions, real emotions, okay? Because you already know what you created through creating. That process, everything of all levels coming to what you've always have been. It's just the existing information. So you get to truly understand how to master yourself inside, that process everything outside of projection. But the biggest thing that you never see anything different of operation itself. You just see the truth, the false of its narrative. How you see the travels of direction. Okay? And they're always in bridging with themselves. Always in bridging. Through its panels, through its portals of indication. Okay? And that's how everything works together in set lines of operation. Inside the eyes of travel. Okay? You just have to process the basics, guys. Living inside the eyes of the windows. This is a true understanding. Then you really understand why your eyes blink, and then you understand why they're flashing, or why they're, why you cry. Why do you think you're crying? If you're crying, your outside is raining. Didn't know that, did you? So that's when you come into more lines and more communications, that you have to coordinate the line position of more levels of simulation, because that comes in a pattern recognition of your emotional system. Understanding the platforms, understanding the travels, understanding the directions of what you do in set lines of operation itself. That puts you in process of communications, seeing everything inside the self, which is the windows of the frames of provision. Okay, very powerful stuff. Okay, living inside the eyes itself. Okay, that's how you project, that's how you perceive. Project, perceive. Okay, of its consciousness, right? So there's 2 provision cycles that you have to process through, which is 12 centers into 24 positions. Grounding your settings into position of 4, grounding your position lines of 4, then you come to 6, 8, 12, 24, 48, 72, and 144 travel of communication, right? So knowing exactly how to go through the foundations of yourself, that process you engage in forming yourself and shaping lines of your anomalies back to who you are as your mind imagination, right? So I'm giving you so many levels, how to modify yourself through a game. Understand the basics games of you, understand the instructions and levels of you, understand the characters you're bringing in, and the roles you're playing through players. Okay, players is just volume of plus, plus, okay, x plus x. You're bringing extra people, right? That's process of volume, okay, which is the audience of the game that you're bringing in, right? That's the audience, right? So you already know the characters of you that you brought in, okay? This is the characters you brought in the game. That's your game. Okay, that's coming into opposition to a system, which is the audience. So the audience you brought in, right? And this masks the volume. So you know how many people you're bringing in, right? Now, when you leave and you don't come back, it's crazy how to look at this in real time. It's gone. It's not there anymore. So what you created is not there, okay? Which is more amazing because you're not looking at it anymore. You don't see it. So when you look back, you're seeing something different, which is the matrix, which you're not in control of because you didn't modify your game. You didn't change the frequency. You didn't change the space. You didn't change the time. You didn't set a time format. You didn't set an algorithm to process through it at different frequency. You didn't set a position outlaws of volume and mass. You didn't set position your instruction. So that's how powerful it is because you're not seeing it anymore. But as soon as you look back and you're not modifying yourself, you're looking at something different. That's a different value, different mass, different universe, different galaxy, different setting, different setup of a different game that you're not understanding. That's why your body's very confused in alignment in real time. Now you're going to see that in a 12 and a 24 system. So you got to be very careful of what you do through implication. Okay? Process in that position was operation, guys. Okay? Because everything, okay, is gone. It's fine. But once you look back, it's something else. Okay? So again, if you look back, this is what it is. Okay? It's many houses now. Okay? You turn it into, it's looking at its own system because you're not modifying what you brought in. So this is what you brought in. And you're not understanding what you're doing now. Travel. That's not what you brought in. That's something else, right? Because you didn't understand the frequency of the game. So there's always going to be a next level of the game, right? So if you get a true understanding of how this all works, then you understand how to modify yourself and all lines of timelines of travel that you modify your system, how you have to come in your own settings in your foundation, your clockings. Clocking is extremely format and lines of timeline that puts in a replacement system that brings in your doppelganger in real time, measure and scale. Remember, the body's already gone through this, but the body doesn't recognize the written script. It's not written yet until it understands its astral projection that's already gone through it. It's the astral projection that's given the breadcrumbs to the doppelganger. So the doppelganger achieves and receives what it already has in that position. You're not receiving. You're not achieving. You're collecting of what you already have. Okay? So you just have to process, engage, inform, and shape yourselves, knowing exactly how this is already done through creating, right? So you're not manifesting, you're collecting now of what you already have. For you to modify that, then you get a true understanding where you come in a time format. Everything has to have a time format. What you guys did, you set a timeline, but you locked your system in one division of one costume. We don't live in one costume. We live infinity of costumes of time frames that we implicate through all that comes into existing in all omnis all at once. We live in all timelines all at once, every single time. But everything is one in one link chain. Everything you process, everything you gain, everything you form, everything you shape is one film strip that you're going through that's connected to everything through one network and one design that you have to process through, which is the biggest thing at foundations of 12 and 24 setting. Okay? So that's what we all have to understand, how this all works. It's at the mind of its image. Knowing exactly what you're doing, your foundations of your clockings and set lines of travel. Okay? So it's pretty incredible because there is no beginning and there is no end. Okay? Now, once you get in that position, you have to truly understand how to communicate to a system all through travel of December 25th. Okay? Which is going to be nothing but zeros. Okay? Now it's going to be in its own inventory of its own operation system. So processing that is the force of reckoning outside that's going to control everything and process everything inside. That's what you have to modify through, which is putting your position location, how you see the mind alterations of you adjusting your travels, okay, in its position of its system. Now that puts you into registration, pathological, and ecological systems to your system. How you see that intelligence of its XYZ, which is the X-ray, which is Echo Zulu, Fox, or line condition setting, or anything of process communication, Tango, Tango, Foxtrot. Process in that direct location system, okay? Now, we're on Tuesday in frame, and this is going to calculate ground centers and sequence location platforms. We're going to get position locations, how you process your own Voltronics, okay? On your own system of operation, because you'll be coming into your own foundations, how you see your 12 and your 24 of travel, okay? Have your grounds, your powers, your webbing system, okay, and your Skynet, okay? That's what you're processing through an orb of communication. Okay? A trowel. Grounds, powers, and atmospheres. Okay? Clocking your grounds, clocking your centers, and clocking your atmospheres. And 3 centers of travel. Okay? That's what you have to go through. There it is. There's your Orion's belt. It's that position of its constellation. Past, present, and future. That's going to be all 3 platforms in one setting and process of set position of operation. That puts you in position of center of operation itself. That puts you in modification of setting through triangulation in process and direct line connection setting in face facade. Okay? Your face of recognition. Then you come into this. Then you come into platforms of the body itself and travel. Okay? So there you go. That's your test on Friday. We'll get more into that in set positions. You have to find a way to get in your own foundations, how you see your own clocking system, how you see your own Romeo, how you see your own Tango, how you see your own galaxy alignments or anything that positions, how you see that through uniform or Papa, right? You got to get in your own foundations. Okay, so I'm just getting you guys how to use your south location. You start with your training wheels. Now the training wheels have to come off. So you understand how to ride a bike. Now you have to understand how to ride a motorcycle. Now you understand how to ride a higher level set position of operation. It's all models, all prototypes, all design that you modify through already what you already created through creating. So I want to make that very well clear, okay? You're not manifesting, you're collecting. You're achieving and receiving faster because you're going to see the foundation that you process, engage, and formulate and through, and will also shaping yourselves. The first thing you got to look at is what you master in. Is everything inside that you process, everything outside is projection in real time. Okay, so I give you a basic understanding how to go through the simulation of the game, how to understand how to get in positions, how to use your clocking foundation in your systems through A, B, C, and 1, 2, and 3. Okay? See you in live.